Hey guys, today I'm going to be making a variable visual system in After Effects. We're going to be animating across the different formats. All of the layouts are based off of the same grid system, and I'm going to be walking you through how we got there. If you haven't watched my previous video on typographic systems and how they're variable and animating across that, definitely go check that out. We're going to be shifting that now into the context of branding. So using imagery and a logo, and yeah, just seeing how that can work and what's different. Yeah, it's a little bit more of a longer tutorial, but hopefully you guys can learn something and just are able to understand my process. So yeah, hopefully you guys can come out with something interesting and you learn something. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy the tutorial. See you there. Just before I get into the tutorial, I'd just like to let you guys know that I do have a set of online assets that you guys can download. It's mainly Photoshop mockups, and it's just meant to help elevate your work and just take it to that next level of professionalism. You can go check out my Gumroad in the description. Everything is free and publicly available for you guys to use and take advantage of. So yeah, let's get into the tutorial. So you'll probably start out with the core brand, which would be the logo and the color palette. And yeah, you know, you'd sketch out kind of a grid system and the logo would be based off of that. And yeah, then you would kind of generate some assets for a campaign. So here's some kind of art direction, photography kind of things. So you may have some more individual focused ones. So we have this guy here. All of these images are generated using Midjourney, and this is fully conceptual brand. It's not a real brand. So then, yeah, you may have some more product focused ones where you're looking at the actual shoe in itself. You could kind of then combine these images together into a kind of visual system that can work across multiple formats. So we've got our kind of landscape billboard here, and obviously our like A3, A4 paper, and then more like a traditional presentation slide. And yeah, these are all designed on the same grid system, so they can move across different formats very easily, and it's super good for animation as well because they all just kind of inform each other. And yeah, I did this kind of palette of graphic material, and I also did some renders of kind of these sunglasses or yeah, shades that kept coming up in the Midjourney stuff, and I thought they were quite, you know, they were quite cool. And so yeah, I've sketched out all of these formats on a 4K screen, and we can then animate this and it'll look like this. So we're just going to kind of work through this and see how far we get. Obviously, once you get one transition, you kind of understand how it works. So we can sketch this out and yeah, just go from there. But how I've set up my composition is I have the same grid system that I have on in Figma. So I've got my proportional grid, which is just visually helping me separate the smaller and bigger modules. I've got all of my assets in an assets folder. And also all of my images are full-sized in a composition, because sometimes clients may come back and say, look, we want to change this composition, we want to change that composition. Also, we want to change this image, we want to change that image. So putting your assets in compositions means that you can actually swap things out very easily without it kind of all falling apart. And stuff like crops, you know, if they want a better crop, you can just do that within the composition very easily, yeah, without having to do that in the timeline. Also, we've got our logo and our graphic put in there, and everything's built in here. So the way it works is we have transitions, and we just cut between those movements. So I'm just going to make a new composition here. I'm going to do 3840 by 2160, and I'm going to make this 6 seconds long, like so. I'm going to make it 60 FPS. I've got my layouts here as well. So first one would be our billboard, which would be this one. So we can drop this in. So we want a shape that it's this. So we can go over here, back into Figma, find out the composition size from here. So that's 3600 by 1020. So drop a shape in there just by double clicking, and then in the size here we can just drop in size like that, and that just gives us the exact size basically. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually convert this to a Bezier path so we can actually move these points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this above here, and I'm going to get T and just put that to like 50%, and I'm going to make our background white here. So I'm going to set a keyframe for the path. I'm then going to drop in our initial images. So, and I'm just going to make sure there's enough scale. Just going to make sure there's a 2-block bleed between all of our shapes so that we can actually properly mask in, and it's not, the pixels aren't fighting against each other. So we're just going to drag these in, and we'll have snap to grid enabled. Just to talk about the grid, I go into our grid. I have a grid line every 60 pixels with 2 subdivisions, and then my proportional grid is 32 by 18, which is 16 by 9 times 2, which gives us this grid system. So that one's slotted in. I'm going to add our second image. Again, I'm just going to make it roughly a 2-block bleed like so, and then I'm just going to line this up around about there, I think. And then I'm gonna double click my shape object. I'm gonna hit G. I'm gonna pull that in there. Shift click that one, pull that in. Select this one, pull that in there. And then the same for this one here. Okay, now I'm gonna drop my logo type in. So this is scaled up by 4, so we can do S 25%, and then I'm going to snap that into that module there, and just want to make sure this is centered. It looks like it's not actually centered against this one, so we're just going to center it like that, drag that in. We can pull this in and then snap that in there. Okay, so we can again scale this by 25%, and then this one needs to go here, so we can drop that in, S 25%, and then we can just move this along a bit like that. Okay. So what I've done in After Effects is I've chopped off the curve in the composition so that it perfectly snaps to the top corners, and everything just snaps in. But what it means is it actually chops this off. So what we need to do is we need to press this button here, which just allows our composition to be uncropped essentially. If I didn't have that, this very bottom bit would snap there, which is not how we do typography. So yeah, we allow curves to go over the line, and we allow straight edges to hit that line. Anyway, so that's our initial composition. So what we want to do is we want to drop in our next one. So I'm going to drop this one in. I'm going to center it. I'm going to hit T and put that to 30, and now what I want to do is I want to select my shape. I'm going to move 2 seconds along in my timeline, hitting G, shift clicking that one, or you can double click the edges and everything just slots in like that, and just pulling that up. Okay, so we have our shape. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move this so that the center is against that edge, and I'm going to scale this up so that it fills to the height by 2 grid blocks, remember. Okay, I'm going to hit G, select that, bring that in, the same here, pulling that in, and the same here, and the same here. So everything should be locked into that grid perfectly. And yeah, just making sure that everything is locked onto that grid. So what mistake I made there is I didn't set any keyframes. So you need to set a keyframe on the scale, the position, and the mask. So I'm going to hit U, drag them over there, and just repeat that again. So snapping that in there, scaling it up to about 2 grid modules like that, pressing G, double clicking the edge. So you can just click that like that, and everything will just snap in, and then you know everything's locked in for sure. So it should look like that. Okay, and then the same for this one. So we need to do the scale, position, and then the mask. So selecting one of those, hitting U, pulling this over, and then we're just going to repeat the process like so. So we can see it moving now like that. So for this, we just need the position values. So we can select that, select here, and we're just going to pull it along so that it lines up correctly. And then for this one, can lock that for now. Yeah, the same here. And I'm actually not a fan of it down here, and you can see I've made a mistake here, but we're just going to keep it this height for the next layout because I think that's fine. We just hit A, U, we can right click, we can go keyframe assistant, easy ease, select our graph editor, and I'm going to pull this into the maximum so that we know for sure that the peak of that curve is directly at 1 second. You can also have a plugin like this called Flow, which allows you to just tweak that a bit more precisely. If you know how to do that in After Effects, tweaking those coordinates, let me know. So let's see how this looks. We're just going to save. So we've saved that and we're just going to see how this works. So that's cool. I think that works. What we're going to do is we need our kind of next layout, right? So we're not fully done with that yet. So we're going to bring that back in. T30, and we're going to drop the shape in that kind of size. And I'm going to go into my Figma and I'm going to select this shape and I'm going to grab the color values from there and then drop that into there like that. And we can click down, rectangle path. We can right click and convert to Bezier path. Keyframe the path, go all the way back, and I'm going to do something like that. So just selecting it, double clicking on the edge and pressing enter. So we have our different keyframes of that. So from now on, just from ease, I'm going to be using the same curve that we just made, which is the maximum, and just applying it super quickly just for ease, but you don't need to do this step. So we right click and then get rid of two things here, two images. We can kind of see how this is starting to work now. We just also hide this layout. We need this image, so we need to bring this image in somehow, and this is image, looks like it's image 1. So I'm going to scale this down, looks like it's about there. You can also kind of add a transparency just to see whether you've got that right. Looks like it's about there, isn't it? Looks like I've got it right on the edge. I'm just going to add a tiny little bleed as well. So now we can set the position value and we can set the mask path keyframe. So if we go down and add a mask by double clicking and going down, mask path, and just double clicking on a vertex and snapping everything onto that grid again, like so. And then we can go all the way back and kind of translate this in a similar way. So first, always move the position. Secondly, apply the mask, like so. So just translating that initial image position. Okay, seeing how this works. And then we can set a keyframe and we can just get rid of that there. We can also get rid of that. And let's make sure to put the image under that. And we can then hide this and set that to 100%. Let's watch this. Yeah, and we want to make sure that our logo type and stuff is always on the top. And while we're here, let's go to the next layout just for you guys. So we also need to do some text. So we're just going to copy and paste this. Going to make note of our values as well. So the 94 by 100. Going to paste that in. Got 94 by 100 already in there. Going to hit Y, and because we're not typing anything out, we don't really need to worry. We can just kind of snap everything in nicely, making sure that that's optically aligned. Hitting U, Shift A, U, on the position, hit P, pull that back, and we want it here, about that. Yeah, okay. And then we can like that. Apply the keyframes, easy ease. So we're getting this, dynamic transition. So we're going to go to the next layout. We're probably running a bit short on time, but I think that's okay. So the next transition is to here. So we're going to hit G, double click that, snap everything. So everything's locked in. This, we're going to double click that. So for this kind of thing, I don't think we can actually do that. I'm going to have to hit G, snap everything, closed, like so. We're going to select this one, and we're then going to pull this back to about there, making sure that that is set to an opacity of something like 30. I'm going to make sure that this one's optically aligned, so that can then be removed. This image here that we see is this one here. This can go all the way back and snap there. And remember, we want to scale this up to basically have a bleed on it. So we're not going to move this diagonally. We're also going to hit position. That should have already been set. And our mask path is kind of the last thing that we need. So it looks like we didn't set keyframes for our scale, which is important. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to drag that there. And then on our scale, we just want to pull that in. Okay. And then for our mask path, we can just drag everything in and make sure that it's locked onto that edge like we have been doing. Brilliant. Okay, gonna apply the easy, trying to get through this super quick. Same for this, easy ease. You can always do a big one where you select everything and just apply it, making sure that everything's saved. We can see that there's some overlap here because there's kind of values fighting against each other. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use the background shape to essentially mask this object. So if we use the matte and we just plug that in like that, we can just turn this background shape, back on, and it should be fine. Brilliant. So for this logo type, there's a transition in position vertically. So we're just going to return this to their kind of default position, I guess, which is probably something like that roughly, which is fine. Let's apply that, see the speed is similar. Yeah, so all of this is going to come off now. So I'm going to make sure that everything's turned off now, including this here, and we can hide this. It's probably quite distracting actually. Okay, and yeah, we can now introduce our next layout. Oof, we're getting on a bit, aren't we guys? Okay, final layout guys, final layout. So we're going to drop this image in, we're going to drop that below, and we're going to scale it down a little bit so it's kind of roughly in the right position. We're just going to center it. Okay, so I'm going to set a keyframe on the position. I'm going to set a keyframe on the scale. I'm going to apply a mask, right click, and just make sure everything's locked in on that grid nicely. There we are. So we're going to pull that over here, and on the mask path, I'm going to set a keyframe there as well. So we can pull this all the way back, and we're going to scale it up. So hitting scale, pulling it up 2 blocks width, can hit G for our pen tool, shift, double click, or do we just double click? Yeah, we just double click without shift, and then filling that into the bounds like so. I'm going to hit U, I'm going to set a keyframe on position as well. Boom, boom. Okay, last image guys, come on. Okay, just scaling that up to 2 blocks. Seems like it's a little bit too big, but we're going to be on the safe side. So again, S, P, selecting the keyframes, double clicking for mask, hitting path, going all the way back. We are going to scale this up so that it fills the bounds. Remember, pretty big this one. We're then going to double click, snap everything like so. And then we're going to apply easy ease. And then you can see that we're going to have to, mask this one into that shape as well, which is fine. And then just our geometry, snap that into the path. So let's grab our second logo type, and we're going to drop this to 25% again, remembering to tap this on so that we get our curve. I'm just going to align that initially. Going to hit P on this, same with our logo. So we're going to drop our logo in like that, and that's fine. And here we're going to move this inwards to about there, and for this one we're going to move that in a bit more. Okay, we hit U twice, easy ease, and then we can cut everything here. So we need to apply our mask. It looks like we haven't actually applied this yet, so we need to grab this. We could turn this back on quickly. Gonna double click, snapping everything in. Okay, and that's essentially it. After that, you just want to translate this to the final layout, which we can do very quickly. So if we drop this in, we're not gonna bother doing that. It's the same process, but yeah, that's essentially the process. Yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed the tutorial and you've learned something new. You've learned about the process of producing animations for clients. So yeah, see you in the next one, guys.